Hey guys, today we're going to talk about what might be the best cars to buy in this kind of somewhat crashing car market. A lot of cars, kind of the hype is over and the values are absolutely starting to drop, but some cars have dropped early or don't really seem to have a reason to drop. So today we're going to go through my top 5 cars that I think are probably the best value right now. They're not necessarily my favorite cars, but it's just what I think will probably do best and you have the least amount of likelihood to lose money on. So first on my list, I'm going to start with one of my actual favorite cars. This is the 991.2 911 GT3. For those of you who don't know, 991.2 GT3 refers to the 2018 GT3s. These are when Porsche reintroduced the manual transmission for the GT3s because on the .1 it was not available. Now, what makes these cars so special, in my opinion, is the fact that they recently just dropped, I guess in US dollars, probably about 50 or 60,000 US dollars. And they're about $100,000 apart from the 992 GT3, which is the newer generation. My thinking behind that is I've driven both pretty much back to back, I think within the same week. And I gotta tell you, the 991.2 in my opinion is a better car. I'm sure on track and everything, numbers are way better on the 992. But the 991.2 is kind of the last mix between analog and digital. It's a very similar car to what I'm driving right now, which is a GT4. The transmission feels absolutely great. You know, it feels very similar to my GT4 transmission. Very clunky. You kind of hear everything. It's not too numb. Whereas on the 992, I do feel like it's a little bit too numb and you don't really get too much enjoyment out of it. Another reason I really think the 991.2 GT3 will do tremendously well is a lot of people aren't putting crazy kilometers on them, but even if they are, they're known to just be some of the most reliable sports cars you can buy. I mean, I don't know if anybody's done it yet, but 100,000 miles on a GT3, honestly, wouldn't scare me away too much as long as the servicing was properly done, because I do think that car can definitely handle it. Now, the next car on my list is a bit of a curveball because it's not really an enthusiast car. It's not a car that a lot of people think about when they think of value, but this will be the first and second gen Rolls Royce Ghost. I'm talking 2012, I believe, until 2019 or 2020 before the new shape came out. Now, these cars for early 2010, 2011, 2012 car, whatever they are, you can pick them up for about $115,000, $120,000 US all day long, and they're not terribly unreliable. You can honestly daily drive one. I don't think you're gonna have too many problems. You get a ton of value for money. I mean, that's cheaper than a new S-Class is. You don't get the features you get in a new S-Class, but you do get the name, you get the look, and to a lot of people that is more important. And the other reason I do think those are great cars to buy, because one, I don't really see them dipping below $100,000, and what you could do with the cars, which obviously if you're buying the cars for yourself, you might not do it, but those cars can be used to make back money very easily and honestly very safely. You don't have to necessarily rent them out, but you could. But you can use them as a chauffeur service type of car. You can rent them out, kind of like with a driver. You don't have a risk of anybody kind of ruining your car. You can get probably $500-600 a night at least renting one of those out. You're gonna make your payments just by doing that if you're into that type of thing. I know a lot of people won't want to do that, but that car has the opportunity to make you money back. So next up on my list is a car that I've never been too much of a fan of, but I did like it. It just wasn't anything that I really looked into too much. The car was very overhyped when it came out. Prices were, ranging from $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 in the resale market, where in reality, I think the MSRPs were in the threes. And now you can actually pick one up for about $380,000. This is the AMG GT Black Series. Now, this car was made to compete with the likes of the GT2 RS, Performante or STO, whichever you want to kind of go with, Pistas. This is a hardcore track car. It might be even faster than a lot of those cars. Looks super aggressive. Production is very low. I don't know the exact number, but I know they were almost impossible to get. And now they're kind of back down to around MSRP. And, we just got back on the verge of these cars being attainable again, because if you look on like DuPont registry, you'll still see some of them for like $699, $599, but most of them now are between $380 and $430. And honestly, that is a ton of car for the money you get. I didn't really like it. I didn't pay attention to it at all when they were selling for like $600,000-700,000. I think for that money, there's way better cars you can buy. But for $300,000-400,000, I don't really see that car dropping below that. AMG GTRs are probably not too far away from $200,000, and I think that's a lot more car than an AMG GTR. It's a lot more aggressive. It's the car everybody kind of waited on since the beginning of production of the AMG GTs. And not only that, it carries the Black Series name, which is one of the most iconic Mercedes names, which Mercedes is one of the most iconic car brands. We have never seen a Black Series Mercedes really depreciate. They're all worth a ton of money right now. They don't make them very often, so they're not abusing that name. A lot of car companies will abuse a name like that. They're only coming out with a car like that, you know, every, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. You really don't see a lot of Black Series. And look at the SLS Black Series, look at the SL65 Black Series. Those cars are absolutely skyrocketing in value. Another perk of the Black Series is that it is a Mercedes. You will have a dealership around the corner, pretty much wherever you are. Parts shouldn't be too hard to get. Cars shouldn't be too expensive to maintain. It's going to be very, very reliable because, again, it's based off an engine that they use in so many other cars, that engine's been tested and proven, and you know it works. That's a nice thing about cars that come from, you know, brands that make regular cars. Their cars tend to work a lot better. That's why I also said the GT3 is super reliable. The Ghost is pretty reliable because it's based off a 7 Series, but it does have a few little things here and there that could go wrong, like the air suspension. But the AMG Black Series, I mean, that car is proven and tested, and I would not be worried about putting a ton of kilometers on those cars. I mean, look at Shmi 150 driving his across the states multiple times after driving it already in the UK. I'm not sure what his mileage is up to, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty high up, and I don't think he's had any issues. Next up is a car that I use as pretty much a benchmark to see how I like any other supercar. The car I'm talking about is the 458, the Ferrari 458. They made them from, I believe, 2010 to 2015. They made coupes and spiders, and they sound incredible. It's the perfect, it's just the perfect car. Everything is just so much fun on that car. It feels like you have the perfect amount of power for a car like that to handle, that you can use in real life without kind of running out of talent, running out of traction. That car is honestly perfect. I absolutely love those things. They look amazing. They still don't look old because they don't look that far off of the 458 and the F8 that came after it. There wasn't a huge refresh. It was more of a little bit of a facelift. Now, those two cars that came after it are turbocharged, so obviously they're not going to sound as good as that 458. They are significantly faster. I mean, we're talking the F8 has 150 horsepower more, but it's not about that. In the real world, you're not going to get to really push that power down. You want to just have a car that you can really enjoy listening to the sound of. I mean, the interior isn't looking outdated because they didn't really update the interior with the F8 and the 48. So you're going to still feel like you're in somewhat of a new car. A ton of enjoyment. You know, you're still going to get a ton of looks in that car. And it's the last naturally aspirated mid-engine V8 for Ferrari, I believe, at least for the common production. So, you know, you can't really go wrong with that. It's a very iconic car, even though I think Ferrari might come back to those naturally aspirated cars, maybe even manual. Okay, so other than just how good I think the 458 is, there's two more reasons why I think that car is not going to really go down in value any more than it is, and honestly, it's probably going to go up. Now, first reason is the Ferrari F430, the predecessor to that, is a way bigger difference between the 458 and then the 488. I mean, that car, that's very close between those two, but the 430 to the 458 is a different world. Now, if the 458 drops, you know, any lower than it is going to get dangerously close to the price of F430s. If that happens, nobody's buying F430s. It's a world of a difference. The 458 is so much of a better car that I can't see that happening. Now, on the other end, I think a 458 is probably around the same price as MSRP for a GT3, or, you know, if you want to buy a GT4 RS for whatever people are flipping them for, you're going to pay $70,000, $80,000 more than a 458. Obviously, performance is better on those new cars, but a lot of people are more into, you know, kind of more of a show and more of a supercar experience, which you will get with a 458. Because of that, I do believe that the 458 is not going to go down any more than it is, and if anything, is going to go back up. So the last car on my list is a car that I was advocating for the predecessor to it before the price blew up and now the price tripled. So the car I'm talking about is the Aventador SV. Now, before, I used to always tell everybody, you have to buy Murcielago SVs, Murcielago SVs, Murcielago SVs. Those cars, you know, people are listing for 400,000, 500,000, 600,000. Now they're selling for over $1 million. I think I've seen some lists for 1.3 or 1.4, depending on mileage and stuff. But I think the Aventador SV is up next. I don't think it's going to get to a point where the Murcielago is at, but this is my thinking. The SV, they made 600 coupes, 500 roadsters, 1,100 cars total, and 750 horsepower. You know, pretty good. It was, I think, a Veneno, or Yeah, I think it was a Veneno before. The Veneno was that car before it came out. So what I think is, I think that car is going to go up, way up in value actually, because the SVJs for coupes, you know, you're looking at $700,000 to $900,000. But for an SV, for a coupe, you're looking at roughly $500,000. For a Roadster, you're looking at around $550,000. Now, that's a bit of a bargain compared to those SVJs. Because when you look at the SVJs, they made 900 coupes and 800 Roadsters, I believe, plus 63 editions, which I don't know if they were a part of the 900 and 800 or if they're on top. So we have either like 1,700 cars or like 2,000 cars. So you're gonna look at a car that's almost half the production of the SVJ, cost $300,000 less. And in my opinion, in my honest opinion, I think the SV looks better. I think the SV is a cleaner look. I honestly feel like the SVJ was kind of over-designed. It's almost like they couldn't stop putting lines and wings and this and that. And, you know, it's really cool and a lot of people are into that. Personally, though, I like the cleaner look more. That's why I like the Ultimate more than the SVJ. But the SV is just a bit of a cleaner look. I think it's going to age better. Obviously, the SVJ's got all the internet clout because of how crazy it looks. It looks like a $2 or $3 million car. But for production numbers and everything, I think the SV is the car to get. And in the real world, you're not really going to feel too much of the performance difference between the SV and the SVJ. So if it was up to me, I'd save $200,000 to $300,000, maybe even $4,000 over an SVJ. Buy an SV, have the money left over, have a car that's even more rare, not that different, looks a little less aggressive, but you know, a little more mature and grown up. And I think that car, there's no way it's going to stay at 500. Either the SVJ is going to come down or the SV is going to come up and reach the SVJ, because guess what, 10, 20 years in the future, nobody's going to care about the little differences in performance between the SV and the SVJ. They're going to look at production numbers. They're going to like cleaner looking cars that have less things to age in them. Now, obviously, these 5 cars are just my opinion. I could be wrong. I guess only time will tell. If you guys think of any other cars that you think are really safe buys right now that have either dropped or won't drop more than they are right now, feel free to comment them below. But that's about it for the day. I'll see you guys next time.